Well,
Hello.
hello.
And welcome to No One's Looking, the podcast where you can say whatever the fuck you want. I'm your host, Maggie.
And I'm Melanie.
And today we have our friend Karla.
Woo-woo.
Hello.
So on this episode, we're going to talk about kids.
Yeah.
Do we all really
Children.
want them? Question mark. So, but obviously because the theme of this season is about childhood, we'll just basically ask you how your childhood was, and then we'll basically all have like different perspectives on kids. And Karla, I've seen that on social media you've kind of reposted a few posts where you express that you don't think you want kids. That doesn't mean that it might not change in the future, but this is how you feel at the moment. So we'll basically discuss that.
Yeah, and just like the different perspectives of like I have kids and like came from a big family. You don't want kids, came from a big family as well, and then you don't have kids but really want them too.
Yeah.
So it's like it's going to be like really interesting to hear like everyone's perspectives on it, and just like I do like think like your childhood impacts a lot on like your perspective, like on how like you want to raise kids like and be around them, and like what kind of home you want to provide for them.
Yeah.
So it's in theme that we're starting out with childhood. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm very vocal about whether or not I want kids. And I think, I agree with you, Melanie. I think it's down to childhood quite a lot, because although I come from a big family, there's 4 of us. I'm the youngest, so
I'm the youngest of 5.
so it's really
That's
interesting
cool, yeah.
to say that you've kind of gone down the route of having kids.
Yeah.
And I thought for me, the reason I've been against it is actually coming from a big family and watching my mum and dad just, everything was just so chaotic. Like I remember just my mum when I was younger, she's always shouting, always really, I mean, she was a great mum, very loving, but everything was so chaotic.
Stressful.
And I was just thinking, I was out the house a lot, and I wanted to get out the house, and I never got the chance to be maternal young, I think. So I just think, I never thought about kids, I never thought about my future at all. I think I just was always just getting through the next day. And I've kind of said before a lot that it was my big thing was to become independent, financially stable, and just have a less chaotic life. And I've kind of got to that stage quite early on in my life. I met my husband, Chris, and it just happened. Everything kind of fell into place for us. And and I think from that, it got to the point, maybe I was 25, then I started thinking, do I actually want kids? Am I now thinking about it? And at that time, all my family, like it was an explosion of kids in the family at the same time. There's 5 now, and there's 1 on the way.
Oh my gosh, fun.
So I went from having no experience of having kids with loads. And actually, everyone who would say, you'll know when you know, and you'll meet kids, and then you hold that first baby, and you'll feel this way, and you'll want them for yourself, and that will just be you, and you'll just have a big family. And the first time I held a baby, I could honestly say I just didn't feel anything. Like, it's not, I think it's cute. Like, they're nice. I always knew I didn't think I would like the baby phase. Like, I like toddler phase. I like being able to, I like when they're cheeky, like to kind of
interact
with them. But I didn't. And I just, from there, that was when I started the journey to really decide, right, do I want kids? Why don't I want this? I felt quite, what's that word? Felt very torn about the decision, because everyone kept on saying, oh, you want them.
Yeah, the pressure you get from people, like even when you do have kids, people just expect you to never stop. Like,
just produce.
Oh, that's your other one and your last one in school. When's the next one coming? And maybe they're just saying that as like a sly comment and stuff like that, or like try to be cute or funny. But you don't understand the psychological like effect that you have on someone, because you think, oh, you're running out of time, you better knock them out quick. Like, that's not how I would have kids. Like, I don't knock them out quick and like give all my 20s away to just be like raising and producing children. Like,
when you're actually trying to discover yourself.
See, I've always thought that in the media, do you know, when someone famous has a kid, it's always like, they've had their first child. And it's just, why do they always have to say first? Like, they never just say they've had a child. And I just feel like it's very presumptuous that they're going to have a second and a third. I don't know, that's maybe just the way I've seen it, but it's always like, oh yeah.
It's like noticing it.
And I know it's your first is going to be a big thing, but when you say first, to me, I was assuming that there's going to be a second. There's going to be more. Whereas it's not always the case. So I can see that. There's always like pressure. Either way, it always seems that everyone's on this timeline. And again, now I'm approaching 30, it's even a bigger thing. Because although I feel like I have decided probably not going to have them, I might adopt, I might do various things at certain stages, and I've thought about that. However, it's still this kind of hurdle I need to get over, because I feel like my decision is not validated until I turn 40, because there's always that voice at the back of my head, or because someone has said, oh, it's different when you're 30, you'll switch. And I've had quite a lot of people say that as soon as you turn 30, oh, so-and-so didn't want kids because they're finding themselves in their 20s. They get to the 30s, oh, that's when you're going to want them. And I was like, well, is it really?
Yeah.
Because I just don't, I don't really know. I just feel I've got to this stage and I haven't.
Yeah.
And nothing's changing. So I really don't see what's going to make a massive difference when I turn 30.
It's really funny to like see how it makes people uncomfortable to like see you happy within yourself without needing to like fill that kind of like, I guess, quote unquote, like void that people create. Like the void isn't there unless you feel like it's there. But it's like, so it's like, if I like, why does it make people uncomfortable when I say like, oh, like I don't think I want anymore. Like, do you know what I mean? Or like maybe I do, but at the moment definitely not. Like, because I've got 2 boys and I had them like really young. Like I was pregnant at 19. And at the time it was what I wanted. Like, do you know what I mean? But like, if I would have got pregnant later on, or if I wouldn't have got pregnant, I think I would have still at this point not had kids. Like, do you know what I mean? Again, I was like super young, so like I wasn't like really smart with like, you know, like condoms and stuff like that. Like, and obviously I love my kids, like they really had like such a big impact on me, but it's like I had to push down and put in the backseat a lot of my like trauma and like all this different stuff that happened to me, because I had to now raise 2 other kids to make sure they didn't go through the same thing I went through. And so it's like you do have to put yourself in the backseat for years, like literally until they're probably the youngest, like Atticus was probably about like 3, was I able to say like, okay, now it's time to do some like personal growth like type stuff. So
well, I think that's the image I get of having kids at a young age from just being around friends and family members who have them. And in the first 5 years, I would say, well, you can obviously clarify if I'm wrong with here, but you're in a kind of fight or flight mode, and you're just constantly there to be able to nurture them and make sure that they are going on the right path, because you won't have time to really think of yourself as much. And I think there's an element of naivety to it. I think when I was 22, I think there was a time in my relationship with Chris that we went away. I just graduated from my first degree, and I didn't know where I was going. I was quite a bit lost in my career. I was a bit lost in just myself and my identity. And I think if I had gotten pregnant at that stage, I would have been over the moon, and I would have really, that's what I would have wanted.
Yeah,
and
that's so true.
And I just find that it is there. People will say to me, "Oh, you know, you regret this decision." I don't know if necessarily I regret. It will be, there might be another time in my life that I feel that a child would be suitable.
Yeah.
But it's not, and I think it could be fleeting and it would go away. I think I need to look at it from the long-term picture. There was that year before I found my career, before I found my kind of calling, if you want to call it that. That was, because maybe I thought a child would fill that void, and it would have, and I would have loved it. And you know, people say to me, "Oh, it's a shame that you're not going to have children because you make a great mum." But like, I know I would make a great mum, but I would also make a great lots of other things. And it doesn't.
Oh my God. Thank you.
And it's funny when people say that, and I was like, do you know, I get people will say something like, "Oh, you'd be a great designer. You'd be great this. You'd be great. You know, you're a great cook, you could do this." And it's like, yeah, but I'm not off to be a chef, I'm not off to be a designer,
I don't want that.
And it's just like, you can be, I think a better thing that if people say that to me now, that used to bother me massively, because I'm thinking I should be a mum because of that. But then I'm thinking, no, I could be a great role model for kids.
Yeah,
and I
for
have.
sure.
And I am doing that. Like, well, I worked in schools for 6 years.
Yeah.
I loved it. I love working with teenagers. I find them so interesting. Just the things that they come out with, and they haven't, at that age, I think, in teenagers, they don't have that veneer that I think adults get, where they kind of realise there's certain things that are maybe they shouldn't say, or they're kind of off topic, and they'll just say what they think, and they're the most creative, I think, at that age. But yeah, you know, I just feel like that's what I could be, a role model. I could be a great aunt. I could be a great role model for my friends' kids. Like, it's not me choosing to not have children doesn't mean that the
You're
impact.
not going to stop being like almost like a parental figure. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you can still adopt like the roles of being like, I don't know, like, a good role model, and like spread it out rather than having to only focus it within your home. You're able to spread it out and to children who might not have that at home, which is like really honorable. And I feel like I don't think that's appreciated enough in society and within like the social family dynamics. Like, yeah. Because like, as you said, when like if you would have had a child, like when I was 19, I was so depressed. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I was like a shell of a person. Like, and then I felt like my kid gave me that purpose. Like, do you know what I mean? But it took me so much longer to find my actual purpose, because again, it was delegated at that time, which is like still like my purpose is like I'm a really good mom. Like, I like know my kids like love me. I know that they feel loved. I feel loved, and it's all reciprocated. And they're really, really good kids.
They're not just good kids. Like, you've got them. I was like telling her last night, when I have kids, I'm gonna ask her all the questions, because her kids are amazing.
But so that's what I mean is like it. So now it's to the point where it's like I'm getting so much pressure to have more, because I'm with like a new partner. Like, I'm not with the kid's dad anymore. And he wants kids, and he doesn't have kids, obviously. And so now I feel all this pressure from different sides that now we're like settled and like, you know, properly together, we're engaged. It's like, when's the baby coming? And it's like, I've literally just started my life, like, you know, my own life. Now that the kids are in school, I can actually delegate time to just me and my business and my focus. And it's like, now all of a sudden I'm getting this pressure. And again, I'm 29, so like they're like, oh, you're running out of time. I'm just like, fuck off. Fuck off, guys. Like,
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. My mom asks me about twice a day when I'm gonna have kids, and it's just exhausting, because I have no answer. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not gonna. I thought I wanted to plan for it. I thought I was going to want kids when I'm like 26. But then the closer I get to that, the more I'm like, let's push it back another 2 years. I don't see why I shouldn't do it when I'm maybe in my 30s. Like, I'm trying, like, me and Melanie have basically given birth to our business baby. So it's like we're focusing on that.
It takes way more time.
It takes up 24/7, just as much as a baby.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you want to actually delegate your time to and focus on?
I used to be like that. I remember actually there was just some conversation I had when I was up at my husband's parents' house, and I don't know, it must have been 24, 23 at the time. Like, I'm gonna have kids when I'm 26, and like it was just that was just, and that I just pulled it out of nowhere. Like, wasn't there was no reason why it was that age. I think it was just, again, the societal pressure of that makes sense to do it.
It sounds like an appropriate age.
Yeah.
For some reason. Like,
It is.
And because my mum had me at 26, I was like, oh, I'm going to be like my mum and do the same thing and follow the same path. And that's why I don't get her mentality. Why is she pressurizing me now when she had kids later than me?
Young.
But her reasoning is, it's because you have a long-term partner. Which is such a bad reason.
Assume,
that's so true. That's, no, don't do it because of that reason.
No, there's so many wrong reasons why people choose to have kids, which is the saddest part as well. Actually, I'm going to read some stories out later on. And it's kind of people that choose to have kids that shouldn't have kids end up neglecting their kids. And then you just create a bad society filled with resentful people.
And just kids who are just neglected, which is like something to tap back on, like with because I was the youngest of 5.
Yeah, let's bring
and
it
my
back.
mom was
Let's
the
bring
single
it back.
mom as well on top of that. So like we had like no father figure at all like my entire life, and so my mom had to work all the time because she had 5 kids. And then my sister, my oldest sister, who was 15 years older than me, started having kids at 16. So not only that, my mom had to then help her out with her kids. Like, so my mom became a grandma, and then so on top of having her own kids, she was watching like all the grandkids and all of this. And I mean, in my mom's like perspective, like that's her purpose, is like raising kids. But in the sense, because she had us, she was never around, like in the sense because she had to work all the time so that we could live. And my brother, who was only 7 years older than me, or is 7 years older than me, babysat us all the time. So it was like me, my sister, who's 2 years older than me, and then my brother, who's 7 years older than us, just watching us all the time. And he was like, he has like severe ADHD, not so much anymore, but at the time he was nuts, and it was just like not the best influence at all. So yeah, so I just felt kind of neglected all the time. Like, do you know, like I had problems with my speech when I was younger, like a little bit of a lisp, but I grew out of it. Like, do you know, everyone said she'll just grow out of it. Like, and stuff like with school, like I felt my mom had to work all the time, and when I started sports, she never really came to my games. Like, and so other parents would come to my games and would have to pick me up and drop me off and do all these things. And so I just felt really resentful towards her because I was like, why are they able to be here and you're not? Like, do you know what I mean? And it was to the point where I was staying with like my friends' families so much that one of the families actually approached me and tried to adopt me. Like, because it was like I'd been
Gives
with
me
them.
goosebumps. You
Yeah.
talking about that?
I'd been with like pretty much living with them for like months, and like I didn't even really, I'm sure I did talk to my mom, but I don't remember it because they had like 3 other daughters as well. And so I just felt like it was like a family. Like they brought us to like all the games and all of that and everything. And yeah, so that was like kind of the moment I was like, do other people see this as well? Like, do you know, so obviously it's not just me who's noticing like she's not around kind of thing. And again, I don't hold any of this against my mom because I know she was working her hardest and managing a lot of things. It's just like it took me a long time to get over that kind of emotional like void, I guess. Yeah, and so I just tried to fill it with all the wrong shit for ages, like really bad relationships, like, you know, yeah. So
Yeah, because it could maybe spiral into negative relationships because you don't know how you're supposed to interact with someone.
or you're just
what,
looking for anything.
Yeah, what
just
love is supposed to look
me.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, obsession could be seen as affection.
Yeah.
And that a lot of people, unfortunately, do feel like that in relationships. You're right, it takes a long time to get over things like that. And it's funny you're talking about that. Although, so my parents have been together. Well, they're still together. Out of necessity. There's like just with financials. And yeah, I definitely have been influenced by the way I was brought up. Because like I said before, it was really chaotic. My mum did work part-time, so she was there. I mean, she's the type of mum, amazing, you know, you can tell just motherhood is just her purpose. She's just great at it, and she threw literally everything she had at her kids and would give us everything that she can, and we wanted for nothing. But equally, she had to work. My dad had to work. I was left with my older sister and my older brother. At times, older sister was only 5 years. Because of the age gap, you know, she was preoccupied with stuff. My older brother, 3 years. Stories of, I hate being left alone with him. He would just just lock me out of the house and just like as a joke, like again, he used
not
to
funny.
think
I'm like, that's not funny.
like tickle me, like to the point I couldn't breathe. Like I honestly thought he was going to kill me.
Tickling is torture. Like it is a form of torture.
I know.
Yeah.
And
It's a form of torture.
It's a form of torture.
Luckily, my mum didn't go away that much or at all. It would be just round to the shops and she'd be back in a couple of hours. I mean, I think she was really unhappy for a time with my dad, and I think if she could was honest with herself. I don't know if they would still be together if they didn't have the 4 kids. And I remember there was one time she'd left and she didn't tell anyone where she was going, and I just immediately ran into her room just to check if her clothes were there, just because I was so panicked, because I didn't know like what, and I was just so worried. But because of that, because of like me watching them struggle and bring us up and just throw everything that they had at us, in terms of money, love, attention, as much as they can at the time, I became really, really independent and fiercely independent. So I started working when I was 11, so I got my paper job. So I was too young to actually do it. But like I think my mum actually helped me get that, and that was like amazing. So I was able to kind of go out. I used to do that every day after school when I got back from like 4:30 or whatever, take the dog, and I hated it. I remember, but I did it because it gave me money. That was my pocket money. That's how much. And I had that until I got my first job at 16, and ever since then I've been working. And that's why I've never really thought about my future, because I actually feel at the time I didn't really have the novelty to kind of think of a future, think about things that I really wanted to do, because I was so fixated on not becoming my parents.
And you didn't want,
and being able to financially afford the life that I want. So that was going to uni, even though I hated it. Going back to uni, even though I hated that. And then finally finding my calling, which I'm good at giving advice, funnily enough. I can't make a decision to save myself, as you know. So I don't know. I don't want kids. And that's even, I'm still like, I might, I don't know. But I doubt it. So this is the job I'm in. And then I met Chris, and also I'm really happy. But, I met him when I was at 18, and it went from like, I was really naive at the time. I just like threw myself in, and we're still together, which is great. But I mean, that was really silly of me at that time to I was lucky to meet a really good guy. And I just think, my priorities were just not, I didn't have the luxury to think of, right, this is the sort of family I want, this is where I want to live, this is where I want to be, because everything I've got, I suppose it comes out to kind of imposter syndrome. Now I kind of think that it still amazes me that some people kind of will look at my life and think that's a great life, because it's just, I've worked so hard to just move away from my childhood, from the chaotic nature, just not knowing where the money was going to come, being embarrassed about not being able to afford things, having a job. I mean, I remember one time I had a best friend at the time, she was brilliant, and I started dating this guy when I was like 15. I didn't want him to know I had a paper round, so like I was really embarrassed about it. And I used to do it on a Saturday afternoon, and he wanted to go to cinema or go on a date with me at the time, and I had to get my friend to cover my paper round for me so I could go on a date. But somehow he found out that I had the paper round, and he mentioned it to me. I remember being so annoyed at the time. I just think so embarrassed about it. But I suppose going back to kids, and I think this is where I'm in the situation now, that fiercely independent. And I am fiercely independent, so I actually resisted marriage for a long time. Like I was quite resentful. Not resentful, it's not a good word to say. I was very kind of moving. Well, I didn't really want to be in a long-term relationship. I didn't want to be that person who kind of got married, engaged, married, have kids and things, because I was trying to, I don't know, be a kind of free spirit in a sense, and be independent and do all the things my parents couldn't do. And I think I'm still like that, I guess. And I think this is my worry, is about having kids will tie me. And I don't want to feel tied, because I want to go travelling still. There's so many things I want to do that I want to take on my bucket list, because I feel like my parents have given up so much for my life that I want to make sure I live a life. But
that's nice though.
Which is nice, but then it's funny saying that the thing that would make them happiest is if I had kids. For some reason.
But you're not living your life to make them happy. Like they gave up so much so that you could choose what makes you happy. And at the moment, like, you're making that choice, and like it sucks how much pressure we get on a constant. But it's like
from everyday people.
From everyday, like literally all the time. It's like even within like a relationship as well, like you can feel that pressure even if you already have kids. Like but it's like you're speaking your truth, and you're talking about a topic that I feel like as well not a lot of people feel comfortable talking about, because you're always going to get backlash. Like you're always going to get that negative kind of like, oh, you're just not good with kids, or like, oh, you don't know because you don't have them, stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I don't know.
And also kind of like the perspective of, if somebody has kids, they can't imagine other people not having kids.
I mean, I can.
Like, not you, but some.
That's
like
what I think
put
about
the pressure.
that. Like, I think it's crazy to not say that if you have kids, you don't think about what your life could have been if you didn't have them. Obviously, I love my kids. Like, I'm like, one of my purposes in life was to be a mom, and like, because my kids are fantastic. But I also think, where would I have been without them? Like, do you know how far would I have came without them? Like, do you know, like, all these different things? Like, what in life could I have been? Would I have, like, found my calling and all this? Like, yeah, if I wouldn't have had all that time just focused on being the best mom ever. Because if you're gonna do it, in my opinion, then do it all the way. Like, I didn't work. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I worked at a nursery that I brought my kids to. Like, do you know what I mean? So I made my job around their lives because I did not want to be that parent that wasn't around and like all the time. Like, yeah. And so, like, I had to, whenever they went off to school, like, I had to change my purpose because I finally could, like, you know, make that decision that I didn't have to just be a mom. Like, yeah, so like when I always felt really uncomfortable when I started kind of branching out and seeing people, like meeting new friends. I always felt really uncomfortable being like telling them straight away that I had kids, because then your identity to other people revolves around you being a mother, and that's it. They don't see anything else. Oh, she's a mom. Ooh, like, yeah, it just becomes like really weird and awkward. Like, and so like and unless the subject came up naturally, I would never go out of my way to be like, I have kids. Like, yeah, not because I'm ashamed of them, but mainly because I wanted people to see me. I didn't want people to see my label as being a mother. I wanted them to know me and see me rather than just my role. Like, yeah.
Yeah, do you know, that is one other reason
Yeah.
that I think I totally see where you're coming from. And I think it's a mixture of things. I think you're right, people do judge people.
Yeah.
I like they judge people who don't have kids, but they also judge people who do have kids. And I do think that there are people out there, and again, people whose life's purpose. Like my mum, for example, she was quite happy to always just be a mum. That was her. And that's what she talked about all the time. And I worry about that as well, because I have worked so hard to be okay in myself and my identity and accept me for me and everything. I mean, there was a time when I was younger, I would refuse to tell people where I was brought up, and I would just kind of brush around the subject because I don't want the judgment, because I couldn't really, didn't want to do it. And I remember, you know, trying to explain this to my middle class husband who'd had, you know, a really good upbringing, and
that's like, yeah,
and
I feel so relatable like right now. Yeah.
And he just, he didn't get it. And there was one time we were out with his friends, I think, and I was obviously feeling very confident this day, and I was like, someone asked me where we stayed, and we actually bought, our last property was in the area that I was brought up in, because it was a old family house. We bought it for a good deal, you know, get on the property ladder. And then, as you know, I think it was Chris that came out and said, this is where we're from. And this woman, honestly, for 20 minutes, just went and just bitched about the area and just said how crap it was, how this and this. And then I remember just sitting there, just like always wanted to burst out in tears, because everything that I'd done that I was ashamed of was just validated, because that's exactly how some people react. And I felt like my identity just kind of completely broke that down, because there's so many people that judge people on like small things. And like things that, and that's what my worry is about being a sort of parent or a mum, is that I've worked so hard to have this identity as Karla, that is me. All my flaws, my strengths, my areas that I'm developing, and this is me. And then just to have, you know, that all gone, and then have being a mum rather than just being just a part of my identity. It worries me. Because it's just a part.
It does happen. Like, I'm not even gonna like act like it doesn't, because it does. And then because like I don't tell people that I'm a mom straight away, because I guess that's what you're supposed to do, like in random conversation. Hey, I'm a mom. Like, yeah, nice to meet you. I remember I tell people, like, maybe we've spoken for like a couple hours or something like that, and I'll be like, oh yeah, like I have kids, and they don't believe me because I didn't bring it up straight away, because my whole identity didn't revolve around being a parent. And so maybe I'm a shit parent because my whole life and every word vomit of my fucking vocabulary doesn't revolve around my kids and all of this.
And
I'm happy to talk about my kids all day and all night, but I'm also aware that other people don't care. Actually, a lot of people don't care about your kids. Like, yeah, so it's like it's just being mindful and actually listening to other people as well.
So yeah, I would say arguably it makes you a better mum to be like that, because I just don't think it's healthy for anyone to have one thing as their identity. It's like work's part of my identity, but I don't tell every single person what I do, and you know, straight away. And it's the same with where I stay, where like you're made up of lots of different things, and I just think it's just not healthy for anyone. But I do think that it goes into what Maggie said earlier, but so many people have kids for the wrong reasons. And I think one of the reasons that people have kids is that they're insecure in themselves, and they project those insecurities onto their kids. And that becomes their identity because of narcissism, to be honest, because it's like an extension of them. And if they're talking about their kids all the time, it's maybe they've got unfulfilled needs or desires that they haven't been able to address or do anything with. So what's the next thing to do? Let's have a child and let's talk about my child. Like, that's my biggest achievement in life. And of course it's a huge thing. And, you know, I do love kids. I think, you know, it's hard being a parent. I've witnessed enough people to have kids and to see, and this is why I made the decision not to do it, because I just think that there is this unhealthy attitude that people are. I guess it goes back to similar to when people are at work, or if they work long hours, or they say this or that, and if you're not stressed and burnt out, are you really doing a good job? And I feel like it with parenting, sometimes it's like, if you're not constantly talking about your kids, are you a good parent?
Are you actually a good? Yeah. Are you even a parent?
Yeah. It's just,
yep. I still am.
It is. It's just, it's one of these really kind of funny things. But I think, you know, as you want to have a role model of a parent who is everything, who's got an identity away from, you know, their kids, because I think that's important for their mental health, for if they get into a relationship, if they want that with someone, to have that too. And I mean, I follow a ton of like people on Instagram, like our parents, that I look up to them and think they're role models, and it, you know, they barely mention their kids. They'll mention it in passing, like it's like their job or like other things, and it's just their whole life does not evolve around them being a parent, and that's how it should be, because you want your kids, you want you to grow up. And I think maybe that's why there's such an issue, people assuming that people want kids, because they have parents, their parents are just, that's their whole identity. So like, well, you know, you can't have a separate identity, you need to also have kids to then be the same as me. Whereas I think if you have a parent, or if you've got a role model, a female or a male, whatever you are, and you see that they've got this whole holistic identity where they are a parent or they're not, and they've got other things going on, then it's just more, it's more feasible then to choose what you actually want to do with your life, because there's not one route into it. I think. And it's one, that was the other thing that made me worry about me having kids or not having kids. And I remember having a meltdown a couple of years ago now, when my first friend had her child. Like, I knew she was going to have a baby. Like, she'd always talked about it, and it was fine. But kind of was out of the blue. She never kind of was telling it when she was trying, which is fine. I mean, why would you? And I remember thinking, I'm going to start losing friends. I'm going to be, because and you know what, it's funny, because I feel like I've had other friends who had kids, and they are very disparaging of people who don't have kids, and they're like, oh well, they've left me behind, and they don't want to see me because I don't go drinking anymore or whatever. And it's like, it's not that. I feel the same, because I feel like well, people, because they assume because I don't want children or I don't have children, that I don't want to hang out with them, I don't see them.
That's so stupid.
And you know, I like kids, I'm quite happy to compromise, or it's not even compromising, I'm quite happy to do daytime
Get
things.
my fill of children through your kids.
and it's a funny thing. I think it's a two-way street, and I do think that it's taken me a while to kind of go over that and realise, when that first meltdown happened, where I'm like, oh my god, am I just not going to get left behind and have no one who wants to be hang out with me because I don't relate to them. Whereas like, it is, I just think it's such a funny thing, but it wouldn't be an issue if you had more parents like you, where they
Yeah.
saw as part of their identity but not their full identity, because
Exactly.
you can, because sometimes I feel guilty or I feel bad, like when I got friends or family members who've got kids, and you feel like you're constantly needing to mention them. Like some of my friends, you know, mention them, I'll be asking them how they are, and I just get random pictures of their kids with like no context whatsoever.
Cool.
Yeah, I was like, I like seeing
Thank
them,
you.
but I feel like it makes it an awkward conversation, because I'm like, are you sending that to me because I should be constantly asking you about the kids? Like,
Yeah.
and then it's such a weird kind of rocky territory, and
Yeah.
I don't fully understand it, and I feel like I can't even bring it up to them, because it's always like, well, you don't have kids, you don't understand. I was like,
Make me understand then. Like, just vent to me. I'm your friend. Like, it doesn't change the dynamics of a friendship.
yeah,
Like, do you know, like, I don't know. I just find that.
That's
Yeah, because I never really thought about that, because I'm like the total opposite. I don't have any friends that have kids, like literally, because I find it really hard to be friends with other parents, not because I don't like them. One, I'm really picky about people's kids. Like, if your kid is misbehaving and you don't know how to reprimand them in public or in any situation at all, and they're just like literally kicking you in the shins, I'm not gonna hang out with you because your kid sucks. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I have standards when it comes but yeah, I find that and maybe I'm in a sense doing that in reverse. Like, I find it really hard to open up and be like super close to like other parents, because again, all they want to do is talk about either kids or like family, or like, you know what I mean? It's never like real shit. Like, you know, like where if I, like when me and you have conversations, it's like very deep, or like my other friends who don't have kids, because I guess they don't feel like that's all they have to talk about. And so I can never really connect with any, like I'm trying to think of any parents that I'm actually really good. I've got like one parent group, like parents that I really, really love, and they're great. They're really funny because we chat about other things. But yeah, Aldous is 8, and I still haven't really found like any parents that I could connect with, because I just found like there was no deeper connection. Like, there was just the kids, blah blah blah, that's it. Like, yeah, which is just really interesting as well, that people would be treating you differently, especially your friends. Like, yeah.
That's actually a really interesting perspective. I've never even thought about it like that, because yeah, whenever me and Melanie hang out, it's just, I never think about the fact that you have kids or that you're a mum. But then the other day I looked after Melanie's kids, and then I had a realization. I was like, holy shit, Melanie's a mum. Like, she actually, on top of what we're doing, has another job, like full-time job. Yeah. Which I think it kind of like put a lot of things into perspective, like having even looked after them for one evening, how much you have to do, but you don't talk about them all the time. It's like, it's more, like if something really nice happened, or like something quite wholesome, you'll tell me about it, but it's never been like an overwhelming part of our friendship.
Yeah. Because like it's a constant in my life. So it's just like, I mean, the kids are like, they're a constant. Like, so if I were to talk about every single moment or second that happens with them, it would just be nonstop overwhelming. And it's not like I come to my friends for me. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm not coming to them to just, like, you guys know my life. Like, you know, like I'm coming to like, to vent, to chill, to like have a break, or like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, for my time, like, you know, if I have times whenever I invite people over, like friends over, because again, all my friends don't have kids, so it's really fun having a party with the kids because they are the center of the tension. And it's like, and it's like all my friends are just like always like, hey, you know, like always like, that's really so fun.
They actually, I think, will grow up in a different way as well, because they keep, like, a lot of their friends are your friends. And then they're surrounded by new kind of like perspectives, opinions, and and
I still have like play dates obviously with them, and I bring them to every party that they get invited to, and I do all the chats with the parents at the parks and all of that. But again, I like feel like it's when people become moms, they feel like they can only be friends with other moms, like, you know. And I just think it's kind of sad, because like, you don't have to give up anything when you become a mom. You can have your kids and still be yourself. but it's just you have to just delegate more time for a period to, like, your purpose has to become your kids, like, for sure. Like, and that's why I feel super, like, stressed about thinking about having more, because then I, like, obviously we're starting this, and then I would have to make that decision where I, like, said to Maggie, I was like, I won't work, like, because I can't multitask when it comes to working and having kids and feel like I've fulfilled my child's needs fully. Like, and why do something if you're going to do it, like, as my mom said, don't do something if you're going to do it half-assed.
Yeah.
So don't be a half-assed parent. Like, you know, do it all the way or don't do it at all. Like, yeah. And again, if you get to that point where you can foster and adopt, that's like me, that's like dreams and goals. Like, yeah, like I would love to do that. But because then you're giving someone a home that, like, really, really, really needs it, rather than just filling this social pressure of just trying to fill a home with kids. Like, oh, you live in a big house? Fill it up with kids.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
That was the first thing. As soon as Chris and I moved, we moved to a 3-bed house, and it was like, oh, when's the baby due? There'll be a pitter patter feet soon. I was like, yay, a dog.
Yay.
But yeah, it is one of those, like, just pressures with it. And I think I actually agree with you. Like, I think that's another thing that scares me, is that I would love. I think I'm not obsessed with my career. Like, I like my job. I love my job.
Yeah.
I really love what I'm doing. I wouldn't say I'm a career-driven person, so I can't even use it as an excuse not to have kids.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm really obsessed with my career, and I could do my career and have kids.
Yeah.
But in reality, I don't think I could, because I already get drained not having children, having a dog, being married, and having a job. Like, there's no way I could then add in a child to that and be able to just maintain and function well, because I struggle enough as it is. And I think it would be giving up my career, that something that I love.
Yeah, you
and
have
again,
to give something up. Yeah.
And it's my identity, and it's one of my favourite prized identities, being able to go into my job and do what I'm good at. And I could do what I'm good at, working with, well, looking after kids as well. I just then feel, again, going back to feel like I'm turning into my mum, and I'm then losing my independence in a way, because obviously if you're taking time out of your career, you're having to rely on someone to support you. That can be in the government, likely my husband, obviously. And I just think that then it scares me, the idea of, since I've worked since I was 11, to then not work for a time. And then it's not, and it is, you are working, it's, of course, it's a full-time job.
It's different though,
but
you're stuck at home, you can't leave. In a way.
And I'm not a hugely social person. Like, I'm not very introverted, I'm a social introvert, so I get drained really easily. And the idea of having to go to, like, play dates all the time and having small talk about your kids. And do you know what I don't get? You might be able to answer this. I don't understand why people are obsessed with, first of all, the weight of the baby.
Oh my god, right?
And, like, just, like, milestones that all, like, I understand it's a big deal for your child, but, like, everyone will eventually, unless there's an issue, will learn to walk and talk. And, like, by the time they get to school, they're all doing it. I'm like, who cares if little Jimmy did it first? I'm like, I don't get it. And people are like, so-and-so's done this. I'm like, okay. Like, my family, my siblings are like that. I'm like, so-and-so did this first, so-and-so did that. It's like, and I just don't understand it. I'm like, why is this a weird competition? It doesn't really matter.
Funnily enough, like, actually, that brought some flashbacks back. Back. Because I was the youngest in my family, I was constantly compared to all of the kids in the family, and then they thought I was dumb, and that I wasn't. That I was like They basically thought I had developmental problems because they were comparing me to a kid that was 4 years older than me and 2 years older than me, and they were like, why can't Maggie read? But you're comparing me to someone who's 4 years older than me. That's why I can't read.
They had those two as practice.
Yeah.
You should have been doing it by one.
Yeah,
no,
literally. Yeah, so that definitely, I think, affected me in my life, like, constantly hearing that comparison.
Yeah.
And, well, but I know what you mean, like, as a baby, like, my mom was actually talking about how when she just had a child and she had her friends, all they talk about is, like, their baby's poo consistency and stuff. Like, she pooped like this today. She did this today, you know?
Like, oh my God, kill me.
And like, and I know you will do it. Like, you will
Yeah.
need that because I mean, obviously, I've got a dog. I'm not comparing a dog to child whatsoever. I've looked after
animals are
dogs.
babies though. Like they are. Like my cat is my little baby. Like,
Yeah, I'm a mum to Zeus,
Yeah.
my cat. Yeah.
When we first got Odin last year,
name.
and he was like obviously tiny, so you could probably compare him in comparison to a toddler that I've looked after. So the toddlers I've looked after in my family, and it's like you have to constantly keep an eye on him, make sure he's not like ruining the house, and he wakes up at night, you know, you're not getting great sleep. And I got a snippet of what my life would be like if I had a kid then, because again, I would refuse to give up my job because that's the one thing that's just truly mine, and I'd need that because that's my identity. And you know, I was getting ready for work, and I was just thinking, I'm just like knackered, like I can't do this. But then as soon as I go into work, I find myself like finding every opportunity to talk about and be like, any people like okay, Karla, that's a dog, like shut up. But I'm like, Odin does that, and it's like, oh yeah, Odin's great. Or anytime someone asks me like, how's the dog? Well, and I'd be like going in, and I caught myself. I was like, I can understand it, especially like the first few years where it's like really that is they are only living and breathing and eating because you're there and you're there to support them. So I can understand why it comes up. I don't know what my point was with this, but yeah, going back to so having different types of friends and I understand you would need your parent friends to be able to vent from those things, but I do think it does get to a point that it's very much them and us, and I find that when people find out you don't have kids, they will treat you differently. Or if when you do have kids, like I think there was a time where I've said, oh, I've got I was looking after a toddler, and I think people just assumed that I had a child, and then they completely changed. Like, even the body language changed when they thought I was a mum. And I remember thinking it was like they maybe just thought it was something that they could relate to with me. And I'm like, well, there's lots of other things you can relate to. And again, I have probably got more experience working with children than a lot of people, like new mum and dads.
Yeah, that's so true.
You know, and
just because you're a parent doesn't mean you fucking know everything.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in schools, and you know, I've got a big family. I come from a big family, and obviously we've got loads of siblings. Well, toddlers in my family now from my siblings, and I have taken care of them, taken them overnight. I've taken them out for walks, and my friends have got kids now, so I know enough. And I just find it's a bizarre thing that we do, because we don't do that for anyone else's other part of their identity. We don't do that when we find out about where people work. We don't automatically decide, oh no, you don't work in the same industry as me, I don't have anything to talk about, and walk away from them. So it's not that different really. It's again another part of your identity in your life. And yeah, I mean, I know people are like that with dogs and cats, because I know because I'm a self-confessed cat person. Like I've got a cat as well. I absolutely love her. I love cats. It was a big thing in my old work. Cats and dogs, you know, either side. And now that I've got a dog, I feel like I joined like some secret society where like all dog people would talk to me if I had Odin, or like I'd mention it, and it'd be like this.
Because I don't have a dog, no one talks to me.
And it is. I can imagine that's probably what it's like in a way, having a child. It's like some badge that you know, as soon as they know you're one of them, that's you get treated slightly differently.
Yeah, people open up and stuff like that. Like, or this is like another insight on like the mom kind of categories as well, is whenever I became a single mom, no one would talk to me. Like literally, because I became a threat. Like, yeah, which was so silly. Like, so I stopped being invited to things. Like, do you know what I mean? Like all these different like factors. Like no one invited me to like different like kid stuff, like and I just like felt super isolated. And it's just like, why does it have to be like one or the other? Or like, do you know what I mean? Like if I don't have a husband, like then and I'm a single mom with kids, I'm just out for everyone else's man, like, you know, stuff like that. So it's just really bizarre.
That's awful
that these people are doing it on, like, in my opinion, not even realizing that they're doing it either. So it's like unintentional kind of like putting themselves in a category and then like pushing everyone else away, when it's like, yeah, you can just miss out on so many good pals and good relationships that could have been beneficial and like helped you grow so much. Like, yeah, like in my opinion, like friendships should be from all different types of backgrounds, like, you know, they have different lifestyles, because then how am I, if I only go to what I'm used to and what I know, then how do I expect myself to grow as a person? Because I'm never putting new perspectives into my life ever, or like learning new things. Like,
yeah, that's exactly what I think as well. It's like a kind of vacuum chamber. I think it's just insane that people do that, and people do that quite a lot. And it's funny you're mentioning about being, you know, single, being a single mum, because I'm thinking back. So someone I used to work with, a couple of people I used to work with, she was single, no kids, in her 40s, and she used to always bang on about this, is that like there was a certain point where she would just lose people because she either doesn't have a child, or most importantly, she doesn't have a partner. So she kind of like labeled it as a single tax. And I remember read up about all of this, again, tried to explain it to my husband, who was like, it doesn't exist. But I suppose it does in a way, because, and then sometimes I find myself doing it too, and you kind of think, right, oh, we're having people around, shall we invite so-and-so, like, and because they're in a relationship, you're thinking, and then you forget to invite the single person. And it's not because you're trying to deliberately ignore them, but it's just because you just sometimes think, oh, they're not going to want to come. But I've got enough like single friends now, I think they will want to come. But I realised there was a few years I did do that. I'm like, that's horrible. Like, I'm totally not inviting them because I just assume that they're not going to want to be a couple, because I would think that would make them feel bad. But it's not. I'm not going to make them feel bad. If they don't want to come, they'll say no. Like, they don't have to, but they might want to come, because if you get to a certain age and you're single, especially if you have no kids, like, it must be so isolating, because you've got people who are shacked up, who are inviting, having their couple friends coming round for drinks, because that's, you know, we've all done that. Or you've got parents, you know, having play dates and inviting your kids so you can come along and you're socialising, and you might not necessarily have any of that. And I just think it's all of these assumptions that we all have on various things about people who don't have kids. They assume that they are not good with kids, or they don't like them, which is not the case on mine. I just don't want one for myself, because it would be too overwhelming for me. I don't think I could cope.
Yeah, it's just like a character, like not a character thing, but it's just like a personal choice that like doesn't suit how you feel. Like, you know, like yeah.
But interesting point about the single friends. It's like, yeah, from one side, that's really sad. Like, I've never heard it from that perspective. Like, oh, you know, as a single mom not being invited and the threat. But from another side, so a lot of my friends are couple friends, because me and Selby have been in a relationship for a wee while now, and that's how we end up doing things. And we've ended up doing it like this because I had friends that were single, and then they would refuse to come because they weren't in a couple, and they felt like the third wheel or the fifth wheel or whatever.
When it's like,
and I didn't want it to be like that, because when me and Selby are in public, we're not interacting with just each other. I want to interact with my friends and the people that I've invited, but they would feel uncomfortable. And then you would feel like, okay, now I have to try and invite a girlfriend that they might like, so then they feel more comfortable and they have someone to be wheeling with, if that makes sense. So it's just interesting, like...
No, that is really interesting. Like, just because, like, to think that you're only being invited for the actual social situation, or the numbers or something like that, when it's like, you're actually being invited because I like you and I want your company here, I want your energy here, not because of what makes you your label, whatever, single and not single, like kids, no kids. It's like, I just like you as a person. And so it's like just come to be here, whether I'm in a couple, because like, even like when I'm with Brody, like I'm not like kissing him all the time or something. Like, who wants to do that? Like, when you have a social gathering and you're a couple, you do it so that you don't have to talk to your partner. Like,
there's some new fresh blood in there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, still come, guys.
Please come.
But like, luckily I feel like our balance of like friendship groups and everything has been like a really good balance between like couples and like single friends as well, and it's just really great. Like, But
I agree.
I think it is getting better, but it's something I never thought of. It's only when I had older friends that I kind of realised. Because I think in your 20s, there is an element of it's quite embarrassing to go to like a new place, and normally like being a third wheel is kind of like don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But obviously as you get older, and if you've chosen to be single, then it is limiting your options about who you want to hang out with, because everyone's got this assumption, because majority of us, if we were single or if we had single friends, would have felt that they would have thought they were a third wheel at the time and they didn't refuse to come. But I think as you get in your 30s and your 40s and you're still single, then if you are not getting invited to things, like, what are you doing? Because most people are.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like when you're in your 20s, most people maybe are single and you would be the odd one out if you were in a relationship. But when you get older, it's probably going to lean the other way, and then you're not inviting them, or they're not getting invited. And I used to think, like, with this specific person I'm thinking of, and I was like, why is she always so bitter and resentful and stuff? And I can see it in that sense, because then she's not, like, she's I don't know, getting discriminated against for so many things that based on assumptions rather than anything else. And, you know, I suppose I'm not that close to her, for other reasons, but it's just kind of, it did make me reflect on the friends I've had, and or that I've maybe not invited them to places, and thinking that maybe I should have just invited them. And I have had friends that are single and I've invited them and they've came out and it's been fine, and I've never really thought about it for a point. It's just when they brought that up, and thinking that we make assumptions that are not necessarily correct on people, and it's not very fair, really, I think. And it's a funny thing, because there's more people that are choosing to be single now, and, you know, statistically, I'm married. You're engaged. Statistically, you know, there's going to be a group of us. Let's say there were 6 or 7 of us. I mean, a few of us are going to get divorced at some stage.
Yeah.
So there will be a time that you're going to have friends that are going to go back and being single again.
Yeah.
And one of my friends was upset about, you know, in a relationship, and the biggest thing for her is that if a relationship fails, she's going to be in her early 30s single. And that, for some reason, it's so strange, because I admire her so much, because she lives a life that I've always dreamed of, where she's so independent. She has her whole of her 20s, she was mainly single, out of choice. She was dating, but she was single. She was travelling, she did anything she wanted. And I'd admired her for that. And it was funny for her then to come out and say that the relationship that she's been in for a few years, that if it fails, that the worst thing for her is that she'll be single and she might not find anyone. And I'm thinking, how sad is that? Because that is someone that has got an incredible life, and I've looked up to her in a relationship. I've looked up to her thinking that she's got such an incredible life. But I think from societal pressure, the biggest failing for her is for her to be single.
Oh.
Which is just, I mean, I know we're kind of deviating from having kids, but it's just it is an interesting kind of thing that people hold, and I think that's going to be the next kind of big taboo about
that's so
relationships
true.
And how we perceive people in different relationships, because there is that whole single tax. Is there, like, it doesn't cost, it's not much cheaper to rent you pay a tax if you were to rent a hotel room on your own, or you take one of these all-inclusive deals, because they're not getting enough money from you, because there's not 2 of you. You're not consuming double the amount of stuff.
Not splitting it.
And I didn't actually know that existed. It was only Chris's granddad who's going on holiday on his own, and he was complaining about how much he had to pay for his kind of single tax. And I just think it's just shocking,
so
isn't it?
Interesting. I love
insane.
that. Keep going.
It's just everything's just been, you know, we just think we've got this society that's just been constructed in a certain way, and it's been favours this nuclear family. Married with 2 kids, and that's it. And there's so many people that are deviating away from that now. We're like the traditional kind of idea that still seems to be the epitome of success. If you don't have
that's
that,
so true.
Then you're being discriminated against, and you're being judged right, left, and centre. And there's something wrong with you to not want that. But for some reason, adoption seems to be a weird thing for people. Like, it doesn't. It seems to be not an inferior option to have your own children. Like, it's one of these weird things. And again, I think that's what what Chris and I have decided, if we do want to adopt, it goes with my values. I've worked, I've got skills and qualifications to help me work with people who've had kind of traumatic experiences. But also it kind of resets the clock for us a bit, because then we can have a child that is a wee bit older.
Yeah, I was about to say that you might skip that stage where you might have felt would be a bit too much and overwhelming for you, but then have a child that's at the age that you feel completely comfortable talking to them. And because obviously you have so much experience with older kids. And then it might be a bit daunting to have that first start of having the baby born and having to look after them all night and thinking about food and
also the weighs on your body as well. Not enough people
actually carrying the child as well.
It sucks. I swear, I guess shifted my organs around, and it he traumatized me. I felt traumatized after that birth, and no one really talks about that. It's I was actually so terrified to get pregnant again, just because of how hard it was for him to come out of me. And it was just the whole you just get so sad about how you look because you have this big flappy belly, and I get it goes, but then you just become a meat sack for the kids. And it's obviously I loved breastfeeding and it was a really good bonding thing, but it was at times super overwhelming because I was I just want to be able to have an hour by myself, and go somewhere.
Take a shower.
My tits would swell and get super sore, and then I would have to find a bathroom to milk myself in. Mother's milk. I was yeah. And and it was just it's a lot. And so it's and this is what I find really frustrating with Brody. And again, he wants kids. He's a fantastic dad. I don't even view him as a stepdad. He is a fantastic dad. And it's I know he wants a baby and everything, but he just doesn't understand. He can kind of understand and really think, but he'll never have to go through all of those things that I'll have to go through. Yes, you can be there for me and you can try as much as you want, but you don't smell like me. You don't sound like me. This baby has been inside me, attached to me. I can't leave for the first couple months, and it's really hard, especially being, again, a social introvert. I love my alone time, but I have to be social at the same time, or else, and if it's a little bit off balance, then that's whenever I start getting depressed. I just start going really downhill. And I mean, it happens when you have kids because you're sleep deprived and all these different things. And again, they get older, and I love my children so much, but it's so daunting thinking about having to go through the whole pregnancy process and giving birth, and it can be very beautiful, but realistically, guys, it fucking sucks a lot of the time. You're in pain, you get fat, you can't control what you eat because you're just hungry all the time. Even when you breastfeed, you're hungry all the time. And again, there's obviously goods and bads, but when it comes to now I'm I want to focus on myself and my career, but then everyone's when's the baby? I'm you don't understand. You just see a blip of me and this child. You're not here and seeing everything I have to give up to give literally a part of myself to this child. You give a part of your identity in yourself to each child in a different way, and it's nuts.
Yeah, and then there's also the expectation to look after the child.
Yeah.
And be able to manage everything else. So I remember somebody talking about, being a mom is a full-time job, and then they calculated how much that mother would have to get paid for all of the tasks she would be doing at home at the same time as looking after the child. And it was a ridiculous salary. And then I heard somebody debunking that and making fun of it. And I was well, clearly they just don't, they're a guy and they don't get it. It was just yeah.
Yeah, it's so true though. It's I know you like the idea of a baby and all this stuff, but do you really understand? Yeah.
We had the chat with Karla earlier, and you were saying something about social media and how much it actually put you off.
Yeah. Well, there's two kind of sides of the coin to that. So it put me off a bit that there was, well, not a bit, a lot, that a lot of women were being honest about their experience with it. And it kind of pushed me in the direction of, I'm definitely not wanting it. Because, again, like I said, I don't think I could cope with it. I'd be overwhelmed. I have got to a point that I'm confident enough in myself, but I struggle. I have low moods, depressive. It's probably down to the imbalance of maybe not getting it right and being too social. I'm in a job that requires a lot of mental, not simulation, but emotional, because I'm a coach and I deal with people day in, day out, and I'm really good at it. But in hindsight, it's maybe not the best thing for me, because it's not that I take on board with them. I just get so mentally drained at the end of the day, and it's a really difficult job to explain to people who've not done it. So, yeah, speaking to people every day, you can get it if you've had a date, and being a social introvert is really difficult. So there was an element of that. And then there's also an element of just that you see some women that are just bossing it. They're amazing. They've got jobs, they've got careers, they've got kids, and they just make it look so easy. And I just know I'm not going to be that type of woman. And I'd want to be that woman, and I couldn't. And again, it was me thinking, right, realistically, I'm going to have to give up my job. And the other element of it is that, well, they talk about, I mean, the thing, I'm so pro, the companies supporting people. I think we should have universal credit. I think that would make things a lot easier if everyone just got that, and that's what we did in Scotland. I think we're kind of moving to anyway, hopefully. But just that there's this whole element of, again, I watched, like, I follow a lot of people who are kind of child-free, and they're child-free by choice, and I find quite their sketches and they're all funny. But it does annoy me when they do this whole thing, we should be treated the same as people who have kids, and we should be getting this, we should be getting that. And I was like, I don't agree with that, because I do think that this is another issue, is that we don't give people with kids enough kind of support in the workplace to make it. And it angers me, because, again, it's one of the reasons why I wouldn't have kids, or I don't want to have kids, because I know I wouldn't get that support, and I feel like you get judged for it quite a lot with it. I think we should just be letting people who've got kids, like, we should be giving them lots of parental leave. We should be giving them time off when they need it. We should be letting them work flexibly and just trusting them to do the job that they can do and manage everything else and offer them the support. But yeah, kind of going back to the social media element, it's a bigger topic that people talk about, of having kids, not having kids, and having kids element of it. Just the realities of it have got to the point that, they're reducing the stigma, which is great. But at the same time, sometimes I think ignorance is bliss when it comes to it. And I think that I'm being told this, I'm getting this kind of sent to me, God knows why, because of my age, maybe, just because of my profile, I'm female, certain age. I bet Chris doesn't get these things, like, he doesn't know. And I just do think, and it's like, well, no, it's just, it is now perceived motherhood, or at least the first couple of years, is just such an uphill battle and a lonely existence, where I feel like there's not enough support for women that are, well, social introverts, that want to have careers, who are drained with certain things, and there's so much judgment out there. And even just the sketches that are supposed to be funny on either way, they talk about, I've read some of the comments about what some people say, and again, they're going back to people saying, well, it was your choice to have kids. And I don't agree with that. It's not good. Like, okay, it was your choice, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't support them. I mean, if we just supported everyone,
that's so true,
then it would be better for everyone, and we wouldn't have resentful people. And I was mentioning to Maggie before that, I remember it was in a survey that they'd done, or I don't know how they found out. I don't know how they found this out, but the people who are more likely to be internet trolls are actually middle-aged mothers of two. I don't know that I actually looked it up again. It was mothers of two, and do you know what?
Except you're not middle-aged.
I know. Just wait, guys. Couple years.
And it doesn't surprise me though, because a lot of them will be so resentful, maybe because they've decided to have kids for the wrong reasons, and they've romanticized the idea of having kids, which again I think is wrong in itself. But there's also the element of that they are not getting supported to do certain things, or they're not getting supported in the workplace, so they're becoming resentful, and then it goes back to this whole them and us thing. So I can't be happily saying, okay, I'm child free, I'm not going to have kids. It's not that I hate kids, it's not that I hate parenthood or motherhood, and it's not that I want everyone else to be like me and not have kids, because we need people to have kids, but it would be a good thing. And I like having kids around. I like hearing the funny stories. I like watching the videos of the kids doing funny things. Like, it's great. It's one of the things I like watching, because kids are hilarious. I love them. But there is just I think as society, we need to be better in just letting people have the choices, but equally, people who choose to have kids, they should be allowed to find a way to vent. They should be allowed to get the support that they need without us always going back and saying, because I feel like me as child-free, I'm probably getting tarnished with, oh, you're going to be, like, people, I think mothers can sometimes get defensive with me. And I've had this from people that are close to me about, oh, you'll never understand because you don't have kids. Like, again, because I haven't pushed the kid out, I can't have an opinion on stuff. And again, I think I can be
so
quite
ridiculous.
insightful for stuff.
Yeah.
And it's them and us. And social media doesn't help. It creates a vacuum chamber. It polarizes everyone's views.
Yeah.
So I think people who choose to be child free are very polarized in that direction, and basically start to kind of snip at people who've got kids. And I actually watched it. It must have been because I was Googling this stuff before coming on, and there was a sketch where someone had played the mum and the child free person, and the child free person was like, well, I don't have kids. And like, again, just just saying it out with no one asking, like, oh yeah, it's great, they're not for everyone. It's like, well, I like my sleep and I got lots of money. And then I was reading the comments and just kind of looking through it and just seeing everyone like just getting each other, like people who are parents and then people who are kids, and be like just blaming each other, like this whole blame culture, be like, no, that's incorrect, or no, this is what happens. You know, people who've not got kids get judged, or parents get judged by people who have kids. Like, it's just not fair. It's just like this whole again polarizing of people just having these views rather than just people being able to make the decision of what is right for them. And I think when people finally find out, and I say to them, the reason I don't want to have kids is not necessarily because I don't like them, it's I just won't cope. It's not something that I think I can cope. And I think I would have to give up too much of me to be able to be the parent that I want to be.
And some people can't recover as well. That's why you get like people who have, not like why or anything like that. Obviously there's other reasons, but you could say that people who have children for like the wrong reasons, or have them in that time of their life for the wrong reasons, and they actually like have it like, oh, I'm lonely, so I'm gonna have a kid, which is like, not gonna lie, like I kind of think that's what my mom did. Like, yeah, she literally just wanted kids. Like, yeah, she didn't care about like who they came from. Like, she was just like, you look good, you make good baby, come make a baby with me and then fuck off. Like, yeah.
Is that song? What's that song? All she wants is a baby.
Yeah, like that was my mom. She'll like openly say it. She was just like, I just wanted kids. Like, do you know what I mean? But like, yeah, and here I am. I was like,
I'm glad she decided to do that.
I was her golden child, only because my hair. Like, that was it. I was like, everything else is like bad. Like, I left when I was 16. Like, I worked like I remember getting off topic, but I remember being like, because we didn't have money either, and I was like a little kid, and my mom bought me this bracelet making kit, and it like keychain kit, and I was literally 7 or 8, maybe like around that age, and I started selling them on the school bus and taking orders at school. Yeah, because I was just like, my mom doesn't have money to give me, and I want money, so I was like, I'll just make and sell my own stuff. And that's how I like went to the skate station every weekend, was
with like your business money,
selling people like fish like beaded keychains and stuff.
That's why you're so good at it now.
Yeah.
She bought this like kit, and she was like, Maggie, I got you this kit. I'm so excited. We're making bracelets.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So if you like having children, whenever you're not realizing you're in the mental kind of state to be able to handle them, could like unintentionally make you go and have postpartum depression, which is like so like not only for you and your mentality and the kind of guilt you'll carry forever, because you don't get rid of mom guilt you carry forever. Like, even if you let it go and the kid even says like it's fine, you still carry it. So it's like, not only that, it's so bad for the child, because that first year of their life is so important for bonding and creating a strong like attachment kind of like area, attachment style.
Yeah.
And if you don't form that, it's like so difficult to really like change that as they get older, because you basically develop negative coping mechanisms. Even when you're a child, you develop negative coping mechanisms, which can carry you all the way into your childhood, like, and not into your childhood, your adulthood. And so it's like having a child because you're depressed and you think it's going to fix you, or having a child because it's going to fix your relationship, and all all these different reasons is just so selfish. Like, it's so selfish. It's like, you could wait until, like, you know what I mean? And again, in a sense, like, when I found out I was pregnant, I was like really young and like not like, just like in a different like headspace and anything, but it helped me find my purpose, like, in a way. And I do believe that it can do that for a lot of people. Like, it can set you on that track, because I couldn't be depressed because I had a child to look after. And so it gave me, I wasn't willing to look after myself and try for myself. So it like gave me that kind of drive to be like, you need to get better for them, which isn't the best thing ever, but like like obviously it's worked out like great, because I'm super happy, like my kids are really happy and like great. But I know that it's definitely not a good reason to like decide I'm gonna have kids because I like it might fix this, like, or something. It's so selfish. And I actually know people who have done that, and it's like ended so badly, in the sense like in both areas, for the parent and the child. And it's just really sad to watch it unfold.
Well, I mean, going back to that, I remember covering this at uni, and childhood and attachment styles, and know all about this. And I've noticed that in working in schools, and you can tell it does impact the child massively. I mean, I could tell without even meeting the parents and just maybe being with the child for a couple of sessions, what their attachment style was, or what their relationship was like with their parents. Was maybe having an absent parent was a major red flag in terms of the way they responded. Or the other one, which is a major one, and I think this is actually one reason why a lot of people have kids, that you said about the loneliness aspect, and especially when they get older and the parents end up trying to be best friends with the child. And this actually happens more often than not, and it actually happens more often than not in middle class parents, I find, or middle class families. And you'll find that they'll try and be best friends with their child if they've maybe got the mum's maybe got a daughter, and they'll grow up and they'll have no boundaries with them, or very loose boundaries, and it can come up in behavioural issues. It can come up like with them refusing school, them. And do you know what I find I've always found really sad, and it's really bad that we do this, is that we always fixate on the child in terms of they've got the issue, and it's not them. It's like, you could just, and people must know, professionals must know, they must go and think, right, no, we know why that kid's like that. It's the parents. The parents have issues that they need to sort out. And if they were just to get the support and the help, then it would maybe actually sort out and fix the issues much. Because there's, I remember one vividly that we worked with, and they refused school. And the only time they came in is they had meetings with the parent. And the parent, I honestly think, just liked the attention.
Yeah.
And
oh, damn.
They had a really bad relationship in their life. And this was their way of having people around them and flustering over them and being there to kind of to try, it's poor you, this that your child's not going to school, this, it's not you. And it's just crazy. Like, and you could see it. And I just think it's the mum that needs the support. It's the mum. If we invested all of the energy that we're putting in this child into the mum to help her and support her, we'd find. Because I always remember there was times I would sit in there was a table like this, and there'd be like maybe about up to 10 professionals around there, and I'm just thinking, counting everyone's salary, and just thinking the amount of money sitting in this room, and we're doing nothing. I think that's one reason why I kind of want to move out of my role, because I just think that I wasn't in a stage that I wasn't helping anyone. I'm a big picture person, and if I can't find value and proper purpose in what I'm doing, then I can't do it. I'm not motivated to do it. And I do, and I think there is a huge issue, is what I also find funny is that we always like dictate, or not through it, like we'll say kind of worldwide, there's a huge issue with, people for or against abortion, whatever, it's people's decision what they want. But I always find it was fascinating that people are more likely to support the person who's looking at getting an abortion and give them the support about, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? Instead of actually giving it to people who are looking at having a child. Do you not think you should be doing that and say, are you sure you want to keep this child? Are you sure you're in a stable mood to bring up the child? Because, I mean, I remember there's a book I read years ago now, and they were mentioning, I think it's somewhere in Russia maybe. Anyway, I don't know if it was Russia, but it's somewhere that had actually had decided, right, okay, no one's allowed abortions. And they cancelled it. And they actually noticed there was an increase in crime over the next kind of 10, 15, 20 years for that. And they concluded that it's because people were being forced into having children that they didn't want, which then led to neglect. Led to all these kind of antisocial behaviour from these young people. And it happened in New York as well. There was a time where they'd got, again, I'm not great with dates, history, interested in big kind of the big picture, but I can't remember the dates. But it happened and they did the same thing, and they noticed that there was a time, you know, kind of you typically expect 10 years, 15 years after that happened, that there was an increase in crime rates. And it's about neglect, and it is funny.
Yeah. Sorry, that just gave me a fright. I was like, oh, because we were talking about crime. I was like, oh my God. All these, like,
my parents neglect.
These juveniles out to get me. No, I completely...
You read so much, it seems.
I've not read recently.
It's just because like you always have like so many books that you like reference. I mean, not just now, just in general.
Yeah.
Whenever we like talk, you're like, oh, I read this book, and I'm like, damn, I need to read more.
I wish I actually remembered more information. Then I'm like, I read somewhere.
No, I'm like that. I never remember like actual details. I always remember like the gist of it, because I mean that's what you're supposed to take. Yeah. So Maggie's gonna read out some stories that we've got surrounding about reasons of like not wanting children and not deciding to kind of,
or like people that have been affected by like neglectful parents, and the effect that it's had on them. Oh my God. Okay. Okay. My mom suffers from mental illness. She constantly tried to commit suicide and was committed for a month once. I vividly remember coming home to find a bloody bed and a paramedic equipment in her room. I don't want to read this.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I want to read this. I keep stuttering.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Okay. Done.
We said we would try. Okay. So
Melanie's gonna try and read this.
Story. Okay.
I'm leaving this in.
Oh, then we need to change camera's perspective. So if you lean it up on your mic, then that should be fine.
I realize I don't want to do this.
I'm glad that you tried. Like, do you know what I mean? Because we kind of agreed when we started the podcast that I would read it out. But I'm glad that you tried, Maggie. Well
Thank you.
done.
I'll try again another time.
Yeah, another time. Okay. My mom suffers from mental illness. She constantly tried to commit suicide and was committed for a month once. I vividly remember coming home to find a bloody bed and a paramedic equipment in her room. When she wasn't doing that, she would spend hours in the bathroom crying or in bed moping. She also spent a lot of time watching TV. I had to panhandle for food sometimes, and I would sneak out to do drugs or drink with my friends from 11 years old and on. My dad had started another family, and I'd never felt wanted by him nor a part of his family. We would talk once in every 3 months, and I talked to my mom a handful of times a year. I recovered from alcoholism in 2009 and have been in fear that I would be just like her ever since. But I had to grow up pretty fast, and I started working at 15 and a half on a work permit and moved out when I was 17. I didn't go to college right away, but started working a high-paying job right out of high school because I had to be an adult so young. I knew how to conduct myself in a corporate environment. I adapted and had worked for the same company for 15 years. I'd made quite a bit of money. Personal relationships had suffered. I don't trust people in authority. I think they're all stupid or doing things wrong. I do what I have to in order to survive, which is what I did growing up, which includes lying or hiding things so not to upset my parents. I'm married, but currently don't want to be because I want to. Pardon me. I'm married, but currently don't want to be because I want to have a childhood, which includes doing stupid shit my wife wouldn't approve of. I have trouble picking the right friends. I tend to pick people that I mother and had in the past developed very codependent tendencies. I also get resentful at people who don't have close relationships with their families. I don't have that sometimes, and I wonder how much better off I would be if my parents paid for college or took care of me in any way. I also hate family shit, like spending time with my wife's family. It's weird. My psychologist has recently diagnosed me with ADHD, OCD, and depression and anxiety. I'm trying out, this was when he goes into like different medications that he's talking about, which we'll get into that another time. But basically, I see myself as very dumb, and probably because that's what my parents would tell me when I lived with them. In a sense, these are all the repercussions of his life after being raised by parents who didn't want him. And that's so sad. Like, yeah. So it's like, why are we forcing people or pressuring people to have kids when this is his life? Like this, I'm assuming that he's a lot older now, like a lot older.
And some things he's reflected on and noticed and realized that this affects his relationships because he wasn't given attention when he was a child and was neglected. And it was because his mum had mental illness, so she was obviously struggling within herself. But kind of going back to what Karla was saying, like if we kind of had intervention or kind of a chat with somebody who got pregnant and thought, okay, are you in the right mindset to be having a child? Then that could have prevented her from having a child that's now grown up and upset.
Yeah, it's like a lifetime of suffering. Like that's what it feels like, and that's what he's kind of portraying as well.
And he still wants to be a child. That's the thing. It's like you hold on to wanting that.
It's also funny that, well, it's not funny, but he mentioned about lying, and he's quite good at that now because that's what he used to do when he was younger. And I remember them. They have actually, there's again studies on that say that parents are harsh or restrictive or discipline their kids in certain ways or prevent them from doing certain things, they end up creating better liars that then go into the kind of the workplace because they've had to learn to do certain things to hide from their parents for things.
God, that's so true.
So it's interesting to bring that in.
Yeah.
But no, I mean that's the point I was kind of saying, that I think that people should have kids if they want to have kids and they're in a suitable frame of mind emotionally. I actually think, because it's funny, because I'm privileged in this situation to say that I don't want kids. I can afford to have a child. I've got the house. I mean, if Chris and I were to go to adopt right now, we would get in and like we would be able to swim through that quite easily. Like we've both got good jobs, we've got a good house, we've got good income, everything's right for us, and that's good. I've made that choice. I don't want to have kids. But what I don't like is that people should still have that option to have kids if they're in an emotional headspace, but maybe not financially. We should offer them support. And it sounds like, his parent was not an emotional headspace, and he didn't talk about the support. I mean, we don't know, obviously it's one side of the story, but it doesn't sound like there was much support for her in that situation.
Yeah, being depressed, being at home, finding her in her bed, like
I think you should have to apply to be a parent. Like, do you know what I mean? And just like anyway, like I know that sounds like really
full-time
like
job, but we
how
don't treat it like
job. Like I don't know how that would work logistically, but it's like like you shouldn't just be able to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna create a life, and then just be like, oh, I changed my mind, I don't like this anymore, so I'm gonna treat them like shit.
It's a lifetime commitment. Like it's not just in the moment. What are you gonna do in 5 years time? What are you gonna do in 20 years time? Because that child will need your help in 20 years as well. It's not like they've left the house and you're never gonna see them again. Like think about it. You probably talk to your mum a lot, so that she's a mum for the rest of her life.
What's sad though, like the society or the government would see that as a success story. The person's obviously gone on to do a good job, get married, have a family of his own, so that's not even getting picked up because from their point of view, I mean, looking at it from a very pessimistic view, and I've said before, is I think that this whole nuclear family, this whole getting people to have kids, is to boost their economy. That's all they care about, and this is not a problem to them. It's a problem to, I think, I mean, the fact that he sounds very bitter, resentful, talking about his wife might stop him from doing certain things, but we don't know what relationship he's got with the wife. Is it, I mean, it could be abusive in a way of emotional abusive, not necessarily even thinking that he's even aware of it. And this is the whole issue, is that we don't, this is the things that we just quite happily ignore for religion or for whatever reasons, for ethics, that people think, oh, it's just not right to abort a baby. Yet we're quite happy for someone to be born and be
have
miserable
an awful life.
and make other people miserable. And he's implying that he's doing the illegal things here. I mean, how, you don't know. I mean, you don't know what job he's in. You don't know. I mean, yeah, I know these are all presumptions because I don't know the whole picture. But the point is that it's not allowing someone to be forced into having a child from all aspects of society and not supporting that person who has a child is just going to have other repercussions that will not stop at 18. They'll continue going on, and they'll probably reproduce, and the cycle can continue until someone breaks it or decides to break it.
That is the biggest perspective, I feel like, as well. It's just like, how are you okay? Like, how are you not okay with me choosing to, like, not have a baby because I don't want it, but you're okay with someone living an entire life of feeling unwanted? Like, what the like that should, like, literally, I don't know, that's gonna stick with me for ages. Like, I'm sorry, but that kind of like was like, boom, mind bender. But like,
On to the next one.
This one, I don't know how to work it. There we go. This one.
This one. So this one was about basically people that don't want to have kids and why.
So it says, I don't like myself when I run out of patience. Anger management was just not something that was taught in my house, though it's been something I've worked on since acknowledging it is a problem shortly after I became an adult. As I've never been particularly into the idea of having children anyway, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice, just kind of like a logical conclusion. I don't hate children. I have nieces and nephews enough to know that I can get on with them quite well, but that it rapidly drains on my finite reserves of my patience. I don't think I would ever lash out at them, especially physically, but I know myself well enough that in particularly bad moments, I can unleash a lot of hateful words that I would instantly regret. I don't even want to risk that to a child. If they're not my kids and I start running low, I can always remind myself that they'll be their parents' problems soon enough, and that helps me keep my perspective. Though I feel this way about children, I also feel a responsibility to contribute to future generations, so I teach part-time at a university. I am more than capable of teaching adults on subjects that we both find interesting. I have several former students who still keep in touch with me, so I feel like I'm having a positive impact. And for me, that is enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're making a massive difference.
And that's, the same thing.
They almost sound like I wrote that.
Yeah.
I did it.
No, but literally, that's what I thought. It was very relevant to what we were talking about.
It is. I mean, other than the anger managements, but definitely the reserves, I get with that. It's just I find it incredibly draining. And I know you get used to things, everything's draining, but just because I think I'm quite analytical, I get what they're saying as well, because I just find that I want to contribute to society. I think kids are important. I think we should be offering them support, but I just don't think you necessarily have to have kids of your own to do that. And there is a lot of pressure to do that. So yeah, I mean, finding other ways to do that. It doesn't necessarily need to be family members. It could be teaching. You know, I've thought about, you know, I work in careers. I've worked with kids for a long time. I don't do it anymore. I find, you know, I do miss that part of myself, and I've thought about things. What can I do to kind of, you know, teach them and try and kind of embark some of my wisdom, if they want to hear it or not, to some people. And I think, it's a really good point, and I do, and I'm glad there's other people out there, because I think that deciding not to have kids can actually be a very selfless thing, because you're admitting your faults. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, I do agree that maybe these are the people that should be having kids, because they're more insightful. They've maybe got my emotional intelligence is probably higher. I mean, that's probably the only kind of big intelligence that I've got, because I'm incredibly analytical, to the point it's draining that I can't just do something, just doing it, because I have to think about every option and every kind of good and bad things for it. But I think as a parent, I just think that would be too much for me to just do, because you just can't. You're talking about the whole mother's guilt. I mean, I feel mother's guilt without even having kids. Like, it's just, that's what ridiculous. It's like, it's that bad that there's so many things at the back of my mind that even with work, I'm off work this week and I'm still thinking about things that I could have done this better. I feel I'm leaving people and not supporting them, or I feel like I should be there and it's a 1 week off. And someone even said to me, like, Karla, no one's going to die. I was like, of course they're not. I know. And I'm getting so worked up about it. Like, just, I think, being realistic and logical. So it's a logical thing to think of. Like, some people are just maybe more in tune with their positives and negatives and make that decision. And I think that's a valid one.
And I like the aspect of, like, it doesn't, just because you don't want to have kids doesn't mean you need to work with kids and have some positive impact with kids. I like how they reference, like, I work with adults and I teach at a university, and that's enough. Like, do you know, like, that is enough for me, and I feel like my purpose is, like, fulfilled. Like,
because they're making an impact and a difference on to loads of people, and at the end of the day, those kids are going to become adults. So it just depends on who you want to help, because we're all people.
Exactly.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Do you want to do the last one? Or
I'm actually getting a bit, my blood sugar's dropping.
Okay,
a wee bit. No, because I'm just feeling like I'm like hypoglycemic.
I'm like, good that you noticed. I'm happy. Because basically, if she didn't notice, it wouldn't be a good situation.
No, it's been a bit like sensitive this past couple of week and a half, and it was just because I was like bragging about like how good I've been with like my blood sugar, and then it was like the next day I almost passed out, and I was like, motherfucker. It was like the universe was like, ha ha ha.
Don't get loose.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing like everything. Like, I feel like I've learned so much and actually been able to relate a lot like, with you as well.
I really love your perspective, and I feel like I've learned so much from the things that you've said, because I mean,
it's fun.
You've got very interesting perspective.
And would you like to plug yourself at all, or leave any sort of like insight or anything?
What am I going to say? I just think that, just from what I was saying and just echoing, that we need to just be less presumptuous, less judgmental, and just accept that people have got different priorities. And as long as people can find a purpose, whatever that is, it doesn't necessarily have to be reproducing. It doesn't have to be, anything. It just, as long as anything in particular, as long as it's something that makes the person happy and they're fulfilling some purpose that they've got, is the most important thing. And I think there's a lot of people like me now that have made the decision not to have kids, and I think that's a good thing. I mean, it's good for the planet.
I was about to say, it's really good for the planet.
And and would like people to not assume that I hate kids or I hate parenthood. Like, I admire it greatly. It's not for me. And I think that would like people to accept that, and I like
open your minds.
Exactly.
Cool.
Well, on this note, thank you. And you know where to find us. We're on Instagram, on Patreon, and Facebook, and anywhere the internet can take you. We'll be there. So No One's Looking Podcast.
No One's Looking Podcast. And if you have us on Patreon, we release a bunch of extra content and everything. If you just pay that £2 a month, which is like less than a cup of coffee for just one of us, and this is our full-time job. So thank you so much for all your support, all listeners, and everything like that.
And until next time.
Bye. Nice.